Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sean Talks Cybersecurity. What a day, everybody. It's been a crazy day on my end. I really appreciate you still joining in live here. It has been a pretty crazy day. For starters, I have had all sorts of issues with my eye. My right eye here has been giving me a lot of problems. I had some flashing lights in there, and I was like, what the heck is going on with my eye? So I had my wife take me to the eye doctor, and so I went to the eye doctor and took a look at it, and basically, I guess there's a center part of your eye, and it's called like the vitreous or something like that. I'm not a doctor, but this whole center part of your eye has like this jelly in it, and he said that it's probably something to do with that, and so basically. I have to go see him again in 2 weeks, but yeah, it just threw me through a loop. And then on top of that, I decided to switch over to my Windows gaming computer because my Mac's been giving me all sorts of issues whenever I'm live streaming here to you all. So yeah, I made two big things that of course, everything's going to go sideways whenever you got a doctor's appointment and you have you decide to just throw in another curveball, which is to go ahead and here we go. Let's just go ahead and oh well, what are you gonna do, right? What are you gonna do? Okay, well anyway, everybody. On account of the fact that we're already late to the show today, I think we're just gonna dive right into some try hack me. As far as the news goes, I don't really have much to talk about today anyway. I will just say that the big news that everybody seems to be talking about today is the stock market. I don't really think that has anything to do with cybersecurity per se, but the stock market being is kind of on the path that it's on. I just say keep an eye on your stocks if you have any, and just be careful right now with your money if you can be. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't hold me to that, please. I'm just personally telling you what I'm doing with my money. I'm just being careful because things are they could go one way or the other. And I won't get into the politics on this channel. I don't know which side you lean on, and that doesn't really matter. Like Michael Jordan said, Republicans and Democrats and sneakers and all that stuff. So I don't really want to get into all that on this channel. It's not my job. So I'll stay in my lane. But okay, I guess while I'm getting all this together, I don't know if you guys have got to see the new Daredevil show on Disney Plus, but damn, it's really good. It's really really good. And if you watched Daredevil when it was on Netflix, you're probably like, man, there's no way they're gonna be able to keep up with. There's no way that you're gonna be able to keep up with Netflix. Like they did so good with that show. Like Disney Plus is never gonna be able to do it. And they really did pull it off. I really enjoyed it. So I won't give any spoilers or anything, but it was a really good start to the show. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend watching the new Daredevil. But yeah, especially if you like dark action kind of stuff, it's very good. All right. Hey, thanks, Sergio. I really appreciate that. Oh, I guess can't make the same vote twice. I don't even think I did make any vote, but maybe it's because of my ad blocker. Maybe that's why. Okay, all right. So we got fundamentals part 2. If you stayed in for my last live stream, I talked a little bit about Linux and some of the basic commands like cd and print working directory, and we worked on grep. Grep is like the ultimate tool in Linux. It's an essential tool. But let's go ahead and dive in here. Let's start to dig into what's next for Linux and go from there. So, all right. So, basically, so it says the in-browser functionality was used in Linux Fundamentals Part 1 to get you directly connected to your first ever Linux machine without any hassle. In fact, the in-browser functionality uses this exact same protocol that we are going to be using today. This protocol is SSH and is the common means of connecting and interacting with command line of a remote Linux machine. So you'll be deploying 2 machines in this room, your Linux machine and the Try Hack Me attack box. So what is SSH and how does it work? A very important point because in your career, if you're an ethical hacker, a pen tester, or if you're just a blue teamer, you're going to be using SSH in some capacity. SSH is one of the most essential protocols. Now, some people might venture to say that, like, if you're going to be a blue teamer, you're going to probably use RDP more. But, SSH and RDP are kind of like, they're hand in hand. And so that's one, big thing. So, reading the chat here. Sorry, so she glad to see you're up and streaming. So oh yeah. I'm happy too. A little bit of sunshine. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really happy too, and I'm grateful that my wife was able to help me out with that. So thank God. But anyway, so cryptography, any input we send in a human readable format is encrypted for traveling over a network where it is then unencrypted once and it reaches the remote machine, such as the diagram below. So we have my computer sending hello world over the internet, and it comes over encrypted, and then boom, now we have hello world. So before SSH, there was this thing called Telnet, and Telnet still exists, but you don't want to use Telnet because it's unencrypted. It's essentially the same thing. It just basically is just plain old telephone service, and you're just gonna boop, send it right over the internet, and then anybody in the middle can read that. They can just kind of see everything that you're sending. So in the industry, we have this little thing called pots and pans. And so I always thought this was fascinating whenever I learned about this. But I had an older gentleman whenever I was first getting into tech, and he told me this story about pots and pans, and I was like, dude, what are you talking about? What are pots and pans? And he's like, and I wasn't trying to be literal, of course, because he wasn't either. But like I said, what's pots and pans? He's like, oh, plain old telephone service and pretty awesome new shit. So I was like, okay, pots and pans. So now that's your thing for the day. So now you got it, pots and pans, plain old telephone service, and pretty awesome new shit. So, all right, let's get on the machine here before I take any more of your time away. Thanks everybody, really appreciate you staying with me here. And we got to start our attack box. So let's see. We're just going to use the Kali Linux machine here because I don't have this machine already set up right now, but we'll get there. I really see I have quite a few people here today, and I really appreciate all the live audience. Thank you so much for joining in to Sean Talk Cybersecurity. Again, as we're waiting for this machine to load up, I just want to say I'm really sorry for all the technical difficulties earlier today. It's been a long day, so really appreciate that. Okay. So while we wait, let's talk about what we have to do here. So we want to deploy the Try Hack Me attack box. So looking at the top of the page, press the Start Attack Box button to deploy the attack box, right? And it's an Ubuntu Linux machine that is hosted online in the cloud and can be interacted with via your browser. You'll be using this to interact with the machine that you deploy in this task. And then using SSH is very simple. We only need to provide two things: the IP address of the remote machine and the correct credentials to a valid account to log in on the remote machine. So for this room, we'll be logging in as Try Hack Me. And then, let's see, be logging in as Try Hack Me, whose password is Try Hack Me without the quotation marks. Let's use the IP address of the machine displayed in the card at the top of the room as the IP address and this user to construct a command to log in to the remote machine using SSH. The command to do so is SSH, then the username of the account, and then the IP address of the machine. But first we need to open a terminal on the Try Hack Me attack box. There's an icon placed on the desktop named Terminal, and then we proceed to input commands. So SSH, Try Hack Me, whatever the IP is, right? This should load up here any moment. And then once we're connected, any commands that we execute will now execute on the remote machine, not our own. Okay, perfect. So we want to actually open this up here. We got to figure out what our IP is here. And you can probably guess why I don't really want to do this on my own personal machine, because I don't know, currently, like, I don't have all my VPN stuff and everything set up on my local machine. but we'll get there, and then we'll be able to just do it all from. I have a VirtualBox instance set up, so okay. So we want to do SSH. The username was Callie, right? Or yeah. So try hack me. SSH try hack me at. Does it want to? Yeah. Okay. At and then it was 10 dot. Yeah, and then we want yes, and then the password is try hack me. Now we should be good. If I spelled that correctly, which I think I did, I'm pretty sure. All right, yeah, we're good. Okay, so now we're in. So now we've actually SSH'd into this machine, remoted into the machine. Okay, perfect. So a majority of commands allow for arguments to be provided. These arguments are identified by a hyphen and a certain keyword known as flags or switches. So we'll later discuss how we can identify what commands allow for arguments to be provided and understanding what these do exactly. When using a command, unless otherwise specified, it will perform its default behavior. For example, ls lists the contents of the working directory. Hidden files are not shown, so we can use flags and switches to extend the behavior of commands. And then using ls, for example, ls informs us that there is only one folder named folder1 as highlighted in the screenshot below. So we would just do, and this is actually what I talked about the other day. So what I typically do is I put the flags in LA. It's typically one of the best ways to actually go out and do that. So by flagging LA, you're going to see the privileges that you have for that, and then you're going to be able to see you're going to see everything. So if I do ls-h, I'm curious. Actually, no, sorry. This should actually give us. Okay, so if I do the -- help, now this actually will bring up everything that all these flags do. And you can do this with pretty much any command in Linux. I would find that using the help is your best bet. So whatever the flag is, usually it's this -- help. Sometimes it's like a -h. You want to get familiar with that because it's pretty handy. You know, you're going to live off of this because this is kind of, instead of having to go out and Google everything, you have this beautifully written thing right here in front of you, and you can use that. So yeah, AL, right? That's what I put. LA, yeah, AL. So all, do not ignore entries starting with dot, which would be your hidden files or hidden folders, and then L, which would be -L right here. So -L, use a long listing format. Okay, so long listing format. So in other words, instead of listing it out like this, which is how ls typically writes everything out, well, now it's going to actually write it in a way that actually is a little bit more readable to us humans. So highly recommend that you do the -LA or -AL. It doesn't really matter. It's agnostic as far as that's concerned. I'm going to clear out my terminal here and just give it another LA so that way I can understand what I have to work with. Okay. So after using the -A command, short for all, which I guess I could have just kept reading. There we go. Anyway, we now suddenly have an output with a few more files and folders, such as hidden folder files and folders with dot are hidden files, right? Commands that accept these will also have a -- help option. This option will list the possible options that the command accepts, provides a brief description and example of how to use it. So ls -- help. This is literally everything I just told you guys. But basically, going on, we have this manual page, which goes a little bit further. So a manual page, a great source of information for both system commands and applications on Linux, and that is accessible on the machine and online. So you basically type in man ls, and then boom, now you have a much deeper version of that help page. It's going to give you every single thing that this can do. It's a manual. So you need to type the Q command, or like the Q key, to actually quit it out. So nice to know that. I would say between the -- help and the man page, you really have a lot of everything that you need to know. Okay, so we've already done the manual. What direction arrow key would we use to navigate down the manual page? We would push the down arrow key. What flag would we use to display the output in a human readable way? Well, that would be -L, right? Because we want so AL, all right? Is that yeah? So I would have it in the dash L. That's the reason why maybe we need to go back to the man page and see what they want us to have here. So a human readable way. So da, 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 da. List entries by columns. That's not right. Oh, dash H. Dash H would be human readable. Okay, well, this is just my humble opinion, but I think if I do the dash L, that's also human readable, and that's what I've been using for a while. But yeah, dash H would actually be your human readable way. I humbly think that dash LA is probably the best, but again, I'm not an expert, so to speak, on the whole Linux command line. I'm just just somebody who uses it. Okay. Anyway, we covered some of the most fundamental commands when interacting with the file system on the Linux machine. For example, we covered how to list and find the contents of folders using ls, and find and navigating the file system using cd. So in this task, we're going to learn some more commands for interacting with the file system to allow us to create files and folders, move those files and folders, and then delete. These are super useful. You're going to use these a lot. We've already talked about, no, maybe we haven't talked about any of these. Okay, let's just go through them one by one. So touch. Touch is how you create a file. We don't know why they called it touch. I have no idea. You can probably spend some time Googling it. And if you can figure it out, and if you find it, let me know in the comments section. I would be really curious if you do figure it out. Or just throw it here in the live chat if you want. But touch is how you create a file. Make directory, make dir, mkdir is how you create a folder. CP is copy, so you can copy a file or folder. MV is move, so you can move a file or a folder. RM is your remove. Most of these are pretty much familiar. I mean, like CP, copy, right? MV, move. Pretty easy, right? Touch is the only weird one, really. I mean, you got to remember that touch is how you create a file. I guess think about it like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and touch that file, right? So if you're going to touch that, then you know that, you're going to create that file. I don't know. That's just my own thought. But file, determine the type of a file, right? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Creating files and folders, touch, and make dir. So creating files and folders on Linux is a simple process. First, we'll cover creating a file. The touch command takes exactly one argument. Then we want to give the file we create. For example, we can create note by using touch note, right? So I guess we'll just do that because there's nothing to lose on here. So we'll just touch note. So now if I do ls-la, now I should see this. Yep, there we go, note. Similar process for making a folder, which just involves using the make directory command and again providing the name that we want to assign to the directory. So, and this one should show up blue because that is the color of the directories. So make dir, and then we will call it my directory. And so now if I do another ls-la, you'll see it again here. So my directory. And you can see here in the history that it wasn't there before, but in this lovely blue Kali Linux color, we have my directory. All right, removing files and folders. And I could, this would have come back here the same way if I would have just done an ls, but just for my eyes, I prefer it like this. That's just preference. RM is extraordinary out of the commands that we've covered so far. You can simply remove files by using RM. However, you need to provide the R switch alongside the name of the directory you want to remove. Okay, so let's just remove that my directory. So rm-r my directory. Yeah. And I just hit that tab key on my keyboard, and that's how I got that. And so now if I do ls-la, I shouldn't see, yeah, my directory is now gone. And we can do another rm, and we can just go ahead and get rid of that note. And again, another ls-la, and boom, now you can see note is gone. Perfect. Just to kind of show you things are working as we're going along here. This is actually how Linux works. This is how you get familiar with the command line. Super useful stuff. right? And I love Linux for this reason. Once you start to get good into the command line, you really feel like, wow, I really understand Linux. It's not that hard once you get used to it. And you can do the same things in Windows, really. I mean, like, PowerShell isn't that different. But granted, Windows originally wasn't designed as a terminal based system. It was created to be GUI, right? So keep that in mind. I prefer Linux over Windows. That's just my personal preference. Okay, so copying and moving files and folders. Copying and moving is important functionality on a Linux machine. Starting with CP, this command takes two arguments: the name of the existing file, the name we wish to assign to the new file when copying. So CP copies the entire contents into the new file, and the screenshot below, we're copying note to note 2. And then, so let's just go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and touch and create another note. All right. And then we want to go ahead and CP note to note 2. And then we should be able to see two of them now. So ls-la, and then, yeah, so now you can see here note and note 2, right? So moving a file makes two arguments, just like the CP command. However, rather than copying or creating a file, move MV will merge or modify the second file that we provide as an argument. Not only can you use MV to move a file to a new folder, but you can also use MV to rename a file or a folder. For example, in the screenshot below, we are renaming the file note2 to be named note3, and we'll now have the contents of note2. So let's see what happens here. So again, we can see that ls-la right here, right? So we know if we copy that, we're just going to get a carbon copy of that. And if we do MV and we do note 2, and then we move it into note 3, or we actually are going to go ahead and just, rename it basically. And now ls-la again. And then now we have note 3, right? So we don't have note 2 anymore. We've now gotten rid of note 2, and now it is now note 3. So it's handy for the fact that you can rename a file, and you don't have to go into the GUI. You don't have to go out here, and you don't have to go through open folder, and then watch how much slower this is. It's ridiculous. Now I have to figure out where I'm at. Is it in here? Do I go to File Explorer? Oh, okay. Now oh, wait, hang on. I got to go to Home. Cali, is this right? No, I'm not even in the right spot. So you can imagine, I got to go through and figure out where I'm at. I was probably looking for the try hack me. What is the working directory that we're in? So home try hack me. So I had to be in home try hack me, and then there I would be able to see all these extra. But honestly, I really believe that if you get good at the terminal and you continue to be progressive with this and do more and more with it every day, it's just so much more efficient. The terminal is your baby, and it's great. I highly recommend getting good at it. All right, enough about that. Determining file type. So what is often misleading and often catches people out of is making presumptions from the files as to what their purpose or contents may be. So files usually have what's known as extension to make this easier. For example, text files usually have an extension of .txt, but this is not necessary. So far, the files we have used in our examples haven't had an extension. Without knowing the content or context of why the file is there, we don't really know its purpose. So enter the file command. This command takes one argument. For example, we'll use file to confirm whether or not the note file in our example is indeed a text file. So we'll say file note. And so you can see it's empty, right? So what happens if we do the same thing here with this unknown one? I'm curious. All right, so you can see it's an ASCII text file, right? We could do that with anything. We could do the same thing with that important file. I wonder what that is. You can see here if you're actually going through and trying to understand what's in a box. If you don't understand and you're out on a site doing a pen test, you might have to do this file a lot and try to figure out, well, what do I actually have here, right? And there's different tools out there that will automate a lot of this for you. But just knowing your basic commands are super important, because what if you need to actually create a bash script? What if you need to write a Python script and have it automate? Sometimes, and I could be mistaken here, but I think even on the OSCP, or maybe it's a different exam, I don't know if they let you use some of these really crazy tools. I think that some of it you actually have to be able to just create your own scripts and do it. It might not be OSCP, and I apologize. I don't want to get off on a rant, but I just want to mention that it's really helpful to know your basics, because then you can actually go through and you can create your own. Some of the best people I watch on YouTube and people that I see out on LinkedIn, they actually just create their own tools, and I think it makes you a better hacker, honestly. So how would you create the file named new note? So you would do touch new note, right? Just remember that touch. That touch is a tricky one because it doesn't have anything to do with anything else, right? Just like I said, touch, right? Okay. On the deployable machine, what is the file type of unknown in TryHackMe's home directory? Well, we've already done that, so we know that's an ASCII text file. How would we move the file, my file, to the directory my folder? So we would say move my file to my folder, just like that. What are the contents of this file? Oh, I guess we got to find that out, right? So let's go ahead and cd to my folder, and let's say, well, I guess we just do an ls-la. Oh, don't have anything there. Let's say cat directory. Okay, so that's not right. We definitely have something here. Let's see. There's definitely something here. Hold on. So I apologize that my camera is frozen on your guys' end. So yeah, everything's all right though. All right, so cat. That wouldn't be the right command. So what are the contents of this file? Does it want us to move my file? Oh, no, it wants to know the contents of my file. So let's go ahead and cd. This is going back up the level, if you guys remember. So we want to actually say cat my file. And so, yeah, so there we go. So cat, if you remember, is actually how you print whatever it is you're looking for in... oops, not the right copy there. We want to copy the selection. My bad. Okay, and then now we have our file system, right? So continue to apply your knowledge and practice the commands from this task. So we can hit complete there. And yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to do with that one, because those are the main things you need to know how to do, right? So, all right. Also, actually, no, one last thing I'll add on to that is you need to know rm-rf. And so I want to do the man page for remove, so that way I can show you. So when I did the rm-r earlier, you got to see me actually remove the folder, right? And not just the file. The F is a force, and so it's very important to use this whenever you're actually removing folders. At least this is what I was taught years ago. And so typically what I do is I use rm-rf for a folder if I want to get rid of it, because then I know everything is completely permanently gone. Not saying you have to do that. You could just do the -r, but I would just say, just based on what knowledge I had, I would use rm-rf because it's going to remove the directories and the contents within, and then it's going to force and ignore non-existent files and arguments. It's just a little bit of a safety net. Not saying you have to do that, but again, you can see the usefulness of the man page there. Okay. So permissions 101. As you would have found out by now, certain users cannot access certain files or folders. We previously explored some of the commands that can be used to determine what access we have and where it leads us. In our previous task, we learned how to extend the use of commands through flags and switches. Take, for example, the ls command, which lists the contents of the current directory. When using the -l switch, we can see 10 columns, such as in the screenshot below. That's what we've been doing this whole time. I guess you could do LH instead of LA, but either way, whatever your preference is. But you can start to see here, these are actually where you can see your read-write executes. This is what I was really excited to tell you guys about. So even though it looks intimidating, these 3 columns are important because it allows us to determine characteristics of a file or a folder and whether or not we have access to it. So, file or folder can have a couple of characteristics that determine both what actions are allowed and what user or group has the ability to perform that given action, such as read, write, and execute. So, let's take a look over here. We got right here. So, read, write, execute. So, read, write, execute. Read, no write, execute. Read, no write, execute. So they can read and execute, but not write. They can read and they can execute, but they can't write. And this here can read, write, and execute. So let's talk about what those are. We'll get into that. Okay, so briefly, the difference between users and groups. The great thing about Linux is that permissions are granular, and while a user is technically the owner of the file, if the permissions have been set, then a group of users can also have the same or different sets of permissions to that exact same file without affecting the file owner itself. So in the real world context, a system user that runs a web server must have permissions to read and write the files for an effective web application. So if you're going to host a picture of a cat on an internet, like whatever website, right? I put a picture of a cat out there. I need to be able to read that file, right? And also the ability to write files as well. However, companies such as web hosting companies will have to want to allow their customers to upload their own files for their website without being the web server system user, compromising the security of every other customer. And we'll learn the commands necessary to switch between users below, right? Okay, little drink break here. I've been talking for a little bit. I am definitely thirsty. Okay. So, switching between users on a Linux install is easy to work thanks to the su command. So that is switch users, right? Easy to remember, switch users. Unless you are the root user or using root permissions through sudo or sudo, however you want to say it. It's super user do. Typically, I have always called it sudo. Then you are required to know two things to facilitate this transition of user accounts. The user we wish to switch to, the user's password. The su command takes a couple of switches that may be of relevance to you. For example, executing a command once you log in, or specifying a specific shell to use. I encourage you to read the man page for su to find out more. However, I will cover the -L or the -- login switch. So simply by providing the -L switch to su, we start a shell that is much more similar to the actual user logging into the system. We inherit a lot more properties of the new user, the environment variables, and the likes. So su user2. What happens if we do that? Let's try it. And then it asks for the password. And then we'd have to put in the password, whatever that is. For example, when using su to switch to user2, our new session drops us into the previous user's home directory. And then now, after using the -L, our new session has dropped us into the home directory of user automatically. Okay. On the deployable machine, who is the owner of important? All right. Who is the owner of important? So let's get our -LA, and then let's see important. So we can see here, important is owned by user2. Right? Okay. So this here should be the user that owns the file, correct? I believe so, and I don't want to give you guys false information, so bear with me here. Bear with me. I believe this is how the owner goes. Let's just go out to DuckDuckGo. That way we make sure here. Okay, let's say Linux owners permissions ls. That's just going to be my best guess here, and let's see if it breaks it down. Okay, so permissions, right? Unchanged owner and group classes. Okay, perfect. This is what we're looking for. So right here on my screen, see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. Okay, so you can see here, owner would be this first one here, and then the group is this one right here. So I'll come back to try hack me, and you can see here. So I was right. This is the owner. I didn't want to give you guys false information, so thanks for sticking with me there. I just want to make sure I give you accurate stuff. So what would the command be to switch to the user2? So that would be su user2. Now I'll switch to user2 using the password user2. So let's do what we were doing earlier. And then the password is user2. All right, now we're in there. I'll put the contents of important. So let's do cat important. And now we can see that try hack me su user2 is our flag. Boom, another one done. Okay. Common directories. Let's see, how much more do we got here? We can do this. We can get through this. I know it's a lot today, guys. I know it's a lot, and I appreciate you hanging with me. I know the technical difficulties did not make it easy, but I really appreciate it, and I promise you it's all going to be worthwhile in the end. So we have etc. This root directory is one of the most important root directories in your system. The etc folder, short for etc., is a commonplace location to store system files that are used by your operating system. For example, sudoers file highlighted in the screenshot below contains a list of all the users and groups that have permission to run sudo or a set of commands as the root user. Keep this in mind. Super important stuff. etc is an extremely important folder in all of Linux. So you don't want to lose this. Write it down, jot it down, put it in whatever are your important notes, right? Highlighted below are the PASSWD, which is password, and shadow files. These two files are special for Linux as they show how your system stores the passwords for each user's encrypted format called SHA-512. Okay. So this is where we're starting to get into our really fun ethical hacking stuff. This is really the beginning of it, guys. So this is really good stuff. I'm excited. So we got Etsy, which is typically what you hear called Etsy. And then you have ls, right? So we could actually do that on this box right here. So cd/etc. And then we could actually do this ls-la. And then boom, now we can actually see everything inside of this lovely Etsy. And you can see here we got our nice shadow. And you can see here it's actually owned by root. And then it is part of the shadow group, right? And that's an important one. Don't lose that one, right? So Etsy. And then we got password, right? PASSWD. So we got two very, very important files there. What happens if I try to cat that? I don't think it's going to tell me anything. But we're going to do it anyway just because I want to see what happens live on the stream. So there, you got your PASSWD, right? I can't really do anything with this right now. But just to kind of show you what happens, it still shows. Like I can still actually show things, but it's not going to give me anything super useful back. And so what about shadow? What if I do shadow? So let's do cat shadow. And see, now I get a permission denied because I'm not signed in as the correct user. I would have to be signed in as the root user. So that's why getting root is so important. Okay, so var, the var directory with var being short for variable data is one of the main root folders found on a Linux install. This folder stores data that is frequently accessed or written by services or applications running on the system. For example, log files from running services and applications are written here as var log, var/log, or other data that is not necessarily associated with a specific user, i.e. databases and the like. So let's go ahead and cd out of here. And then let's do cd var. And again, do another ls-la. And so we can start to see all the important stuff that we could find here. So, oh, there's our log right there. And we could get all of that juicy information there. Also good for troubleshooting. If you're going to be a sysadmin, you could use that and it could be helpful for you. And also SIEM tools, SIEM, like Splunk. Splunk's a big one, right? It's probably the biggest industry player in this space, right? But you can actually do your log aggregation from all your Linux endpoints right here. So you would go out to var and then log for all your logs. Super good information. Root, unlike the home directory, the root folder is actually the home for the root system user. There isn't anything more to this folder other than just understanding that this is the home directory for the root user. But it's worth mentioning as the logical presumption that this user would have their data in a directory such as home root by default. And then temp. Actually, before we move on to temp, one thing I want to mention: at no point for the rest of your life from this moment on, don't ever have just one account on your machine. You shouldn't have yourself sign in as your root user all the time. You should have what's called least privilege. So you need to have follow basic IAM, that is identity and access management principles. If you're going to be a cybersecurity professional, you need to have essentially one root user that is your keys to the kingdom to do everything that you need to do on the computer. And then, or you can delegate it out. You can actually have separate things if you want to really get granular. But then you have one standard user which has access to pretty much nothing except for just the basic things. Because if you get pwned and if somebody owns your machine and they get in there and they do whatever they want, then if you have that separation of access, then you don't have to worry about, you could just delete that other user using your root user. And they don't have access to all the other stuff that you normally have access to. On Linux, it's super easy to set that sort of thing up. Windows is a little bit more complex, but not so bad, and Mac is sort of the same thing as Linux. So I think that this is just my humble opinion, and this is coming from somebody who's been doing cybersecurity for a long time. I highly recommend that if you have a personal computer, you have, which, I mean, who doesn't have a personal computer, right? If you have on your personal computer, you separate those out. You have your normal account for normal tasks, and then you have your root account for all your more strict things you need to do, right? Okay, so temp is this unique directory found in a Linux install, short for temporary. The temp directory is volatile and is used to store data that is only needed to be accessed once or twice. Similar to the memory on your computer, once the computer is restarted, the contents of this folder are cleared out. What's useful for us is in pen testing is that any user can write to this folder by default. Keep that in mind. We'll get there. We're getting there. And it's happening fast, folks. It's happening really fast. Meaning once we have access to a machine, it serves us as a good place to store things like our enumeration scripts. This temp folder is going to be super useful for you coming up here soon. Once we get into the really fun stuff. I can't wait. So what is the directory path that would we expect logs to be stored in? So that, if you remember, that's our var logs, right? So what root directory is similar to how RAM on a computer works? That would be our temp. What is the name of the home directory of the root user? Root. And then apply your learning and navigate, which if you want to do that, feel free. Go ahead and get on TryHackMe. I'm not sponsored by them, but I just say that because I think it's good for you to actually get out there and practice. It's one thing to watch me and sit here and do this, and I really appreciate you guys watching me. Thank you so much. But I also want you to do it hands-on because it's how you get good. Like that's actually how I learn the best. I like to watch people. I watch John Hammond. He's amazing. Network Chuck, all those guys, fantastic. But getting out here and actually doing the work and doing it is wonderful, and I highly recommend you do it. So, all right, so that was it for that. Basically, that's theory heavy, but also useful. And then the next stuff will be coming tomorrow. Again, sorry for getting sick, guys. Kind of like hit me out of the blue. I ended up with the flu, and yeah, here I am. So. And then the eye doctor thing today, oh my goodness. So I kind of got hit all at one time there. But anyway, that is all I have for today, guys. I'm not going to switch over to my main cam because I'm still kind of working out some kinks in the technical difficulties from earlier. So I'm just going to say goodbye on this one and say thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining in today. If you could, please hit that like button hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and that way you don't miss another video, any videos at all. Share it with your great Aunt Sally. And thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Sergio, thank you so much for joining in. I saw your chat. Didn't want you to think I didn't see you there. Really appreciate it. A little bit of sunshine, you too. Anybody who's joined in, just know chat is always live. You feel free to ask any questions you want. It's been great chatting with you all today. Hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.